Oh yeah, I'll say good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's section. I'll be sharing my screen in a moment as we move straight away into today's session. And just a second. Yep. Okay. So there you go. We will continue from where we left off. Just by way of recap, we've covered quite um, a lot, right from the first module as initially introduced down to the second module, and from there to the third module, down to the fourth module, from the fifth module down to the sixth module. And in each of all of these modules, we are covering different data analytics tools, starting with Excel down to the use of statistics, and we moved down to SQL, and thereafter we touched on Tableau, which we just recently finished. Um, we also moved from Tableau to ethics and bias in data. And the reason for this particular module 9, which touches on ethics and bias in data, which has to do with um, privacy and security in data, is that beyond having capacity and developing skills in handling those tools, which we've covered so far, and many other ones as we progress, it is much more important to know the um, governance requirement surrounding use of data. So anybody that is into data or whoever finds himself or herself in data industry needs to be uh, well equipped with the understanding and requirement that is expected of that person in terms of the duty of care when it comes to the handling and management of data, especially what we call personally identified information, PII. And that is very serious because that is why we have a number of regulatory bodies which came up. For instance, we did a GDPR, which is a General Data Protection regulation for the EU, and which UK also participated largely in. And of course, the one between the UK and the US too, in terms of just ensuring that whatever data you are processing, there is an expectation of some sort of level of confidentiality, privacy, and some legality surrounding that, which everyone dealing with data must necessarily comply with uh, all day long. So we've started that last session, and we should be able to cover it today. Just a few items under that. Then we'll see if we can cover one more to preferably Python later on. Before that Python, we will dwell a bit on creating portfolio, project portfolio, where you could put all sort of stuffs you've been working on as a data scientist or data analyst, such that people can easily assess what you've done, why you did the project, and the insight that came from the outcome of the project, and all sort of things like that. So it's very useful for many purposes. Number one is for employers to be able to independently see when you are being searched or when any role is being searched online. Your profile can be pulled all along the outcome that will come out for whoever is searching. So the employer is able to see what you've done, assess you, and all sort of things like that. Of course, it's also an avenue for other professionals in the field to be able to see what you have done, collaborate, create networks, and what have you. So we'll be able to deal more on that when we pick it up after we are done with these ethics and bias in data, which we are going to finalize today in a short while. It doesn't require too much time again because we've started it previously. So let's dive into that today. Um, yep, shall we? As we are diving into that. Okay. Yeah, we have done this. Yes, we ended in this place. Yes, the relationship between the EU and the US in terms of data privacy network, that was after we spoke on the GDPR. Now, today we are going into data security and a few things that surrounds data security as it were. In general, organizations who are planning to exercise some measure of security over the data that they have in their custody. They are supposed to understand fully well the three cardinal points that data security in general contain or uh, enlist, and they are these three, what we call it CIA. It is called confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So these three fundamental, will I call it processes or phenomena now, are the ones that constitutes the data security architecture. So if you want to ensure you create data security all around the information that your organization has got, you must be able to ensure confidentiality. And of course, confidentiality speaks directly to the subject of privacy of data, and that has to do with the deliberate restriction of access through authentication and encryption. So it means nobody can just come up because they are on your site, even if they are your employee, because they are within your premises, then they are almost automatically being able to access information or data that surrounds your business. That is so unprofessional, especially in terms of the duty of care around the subject of data. So that somebody is in the same room with any employee, or even if it is colleagues or employees who are working in the organization, there are levels of information which are role dependent that each employee is expected to be able to access. So, as an employer or as organizations, you are expected to ensure this level of privacy such that there is obvious restriction of access through these levels of control. It could be encryption, it could be authentication, it could be the use of some login details and what have you. So this has to be done for all data. I mean, regardless of the degree of their sensitivity, and that's is what confidentiality is about. Then next on that is integrity, and this has to do with ensuring information is as accurate as possible and it can be trusted. The trustworthiness of the information that you are giving is in doubt or is not below 100%. So that is the integrity of data or integrity of information as it is. So third on that is availability. So it is one thing for data to be secure. There is encryption, there is authentication, there is privacy rules and processes in place. There is the data is accurate in terms of being up to date. It is also trustworthy. There are no biases and what have you. But as good as those factors I've mentioned are, it is also important that data is available. And data availability simply tells us that The information you are attempting to access is actually accessible only to authorized people. And aside being accessible to authorized people, um, it actually also gets to be available when you need it, regardless of whatever event or occurrence that could have happened, which are always likely to happen, especially in this digital age. We have a number of different attack at information against which cybersecurity is being created nowadays. But regardless of how many times you suffer those attack or your organization being attacked, you are still expected to have your data being available to those who want to use it, especially those who are authorized to use it. So I will build more on that as I expatiate on these three cardinal point under data security. So further to that, so confidentiality, like I said before, like and the word privacy are interchangeably usable, and they are more like uh, similar words in this case. So organizations generally are also expected to ensure that only authorized individuals can view confidential data. An attempt for an unauthorized person seeing a particular data, even if they belong to the same organization as employee, is a breach of confidentiality, whether we like it or not. And these are the kind of things we must take note of. So there are need to know basis of data accessibility, so that somebody is my colleague or we both work in the same place does not automatically translate into the fact that whatever information he has access to, then I must also have access to it, or I having access to it does not make any difference. It makes a lot of difference as long as it has nothing to do with my primary job role. Then having access to such data is not different from an unauthorized person having access to that data. So that needs to be noted. So confidentiality also we have a couple of ways in which we could ensure that confidentiality is maintained, such that even if somebody deliberately attempts to circumvent that process, they will still be unable to do so because there are protocols already implemented that will guard against or mitigate that particular attempt from whoever is intending to do it. So, what are those ways? What are those methods? Aside the authentication process I mentioned earlier, and aside the um, login access that we mentioned earlier, to further strengthen confidentiality, you have got to put encryption in place such that even if a particular data is uh, indeliberately sent to or shared with somebody who is not expected to see that data, meaning there could be an instance where uh, information or data is sent to unintended recipients, and that could happen not by the person's deliberate attempt. It just happened for some reasons in an organization. So when such happen, if that data had been by default encrypted, it is easy to control the movement of what has been sent over. Since it's encrypted, then the process of de-encrypting it is what the person will just make sure is not sending over, and will just request the person at the other side to get the mail deleted, or you can go ahead and record the mail as long as it has not taken too long before that realization dawns on the person in question. So, data encryption could be used. User ID, name, and password could be used. Multi-factor authentication, yeah, can be used. We have a number of platforms these days who are using two-level factors, stuff like that, in controlling accessibility into their database. So, if for any reason one is beaten, there must have also been a protocol in place that can easily sense an attack or an invasion or an unauthorized access into the data where, I mean, in which the person in charge is already sensitized or alerted about. So before the second level of the authentication is equally attacked, there would have been a counterattack taken against such malicious invasion, which would eventually have saved the whole database from being accessed by an unauthorized person. So these are ways and methods in which confidentiality can be further strengthened. So second on that cardinal point for data security, aside confidentiality, is the subject of integrity. Integrity refers to the accuracy and consistency plus the trustworthiness of data during the entire life cycle of that data. So you may be wondering, what's the life cycle of data? What does it mean? So just like an average human being have a life cycle, or anything at all has a life cycle from the time it is created to the time it goes into extinction. Data also has got a life cycle. So from the time the data is either created or generated to the time it is completely destroyed or deleted, you owe the duty of care to ensure the integrity of that data. And the factors that speak to the integrity of data are trustworthiness, consistency, and accuracy. So that simply means that data is expected to remain unaltered, unchanged by unauthorized entity during movement. So whether you are sending it to one person or the other, in the course of that transition, the integrity at the point of origin to the destination point is never expected to change, meaning the accuracy, the consistency, the exact nature and value that that data carries from the time it was about to be sent till after it was sent must remain the same. So that is what judges the integrity of that particular data. So to have this use of file permission and user access control is often used to prevent unauthorized access. And in some other places too, people include version control in some documents, which also helps to prevent accidental changes by this time around, even authorized person, meaning that people who are authorized to access a particular information or file can accidentally cause something to be deleted. But if that version has version control already enabled on it, it will be pretty impossible for that person to get it deleted without the real creator of that file being alerted. And that is the person that will give an approval for that changes to be committed into the file. And that is also a control such that somebody who now has access, we have spoken about people who are not authorized to access and ways to block them out. But for people who are authorized to access, and in the course of carrying out their day-to-day activity on that information or data, humanly speaking, they could also by mistake uh, cause some things to change in data by way of deleting accidentally. To prevent that and to retain the integrity of that data, version control is often are put in place. And as soon as that is enabled, there is one or two process that deletion or change request will go through before it can ever be effected on the file. And as long as the people in charge of those two processes of approval do not consent, then that particular accidental deletion request will not be affected. And that means the data remains what it is and maintains its integrity uh, on throughout that process. So still on integrity, to ensure that you still preserve the integrity of your data, backups are also used. So, for instance, some data can just accidentally get corrupted due to some programming stuffs or some applications that are moved from one place to another, or it could also be due to attack in one way or the other, or some viruses that you cannot really explain. In such very critical situations, backup come to be, and the kind of backup that helps this time around are backup systems that are backing up in real time. So when such accidental corruption occurs, the real-time backup goes to the last time that particular backup works effectively and restore that data and database back to the last time everything worked fine prior to that corruption. And that is exactly the most important thing needed. So that is another method of ensuring that you maintain or retain the integrity of your data. So another thing that can be used to retain the integrity of data is a phenomenon called hashing, and that is also used to verify the integrity of data during transfer. It uses a mathematical algorithm which creates a single fixed length value that represent the data exactly as it is. So that is the hashing number. It has a fixed length value. So the hashed value is simply there for comparison. So it has an hashed value before the data transfer is commenced. So that hashed value will be written down or just get it noted somewhere. Then finally, when the data gets to the destination point, it also has hash value. So you have to now check what that hash value is. It is expected that the hash value at point of origin is not different from the hash value at the destination point. And that's what will tell you if the data arrive destination the same way it left the origin. So if the hash value has changed, so it means something has happened in transit or along the line. So you need to check what exactly it was that has happened, but at least the role of that hash value is to point your attention to whether or not you should still regard that data as maintaining its integrity, just the way it was at the point of transfer to the final point where it was transferred to. So that is how to get one alerted on that. So the next thing on those cardinal points after confidentiality, after integrity is availability. So just like I said earlier, it is one thing for you to have put things in place, ensure that confidentiality protocol is not breached, privacy is maintained, all sort of controls are in place, the data integrity is intact, and what have you. As good as all of those things are, it is also quite important for your data to be available always to authorized users. At any point in time when such data or information is not available, it may mean something detrimental to the person who is trying to access that data at that point in time. Do not forget, we are talking about authorized uh, people. I mean, people who have authorized access to that data. So, and to ensure this availability is to have a system in place where there is regular equipment maintenance because all the data movement, data pipeline, API, all the different devices that data move through, even the cloud system itself, either the one governed by AWS or Google or any other vendor or provider, eventually they sell or provide their services to us online or remotely through the cloud. But nonetheless, do not forget, they also have some physical gadget and devices somewhere in a data farm or in a data center where the real life equipment are, and they are the one upon which those data are being run or kept before you are able to access it at will at any point in time. So there is need for a regular equipment maintenance. If there is need for hardware repair, to have this done, you must have had a robust system put in place such that when all of these regular equipment maintenance is to take place, well, for reasons they can take place within a very short time because you have another system as a backup, which is expected to be running in that window or within that period where other part of it is undergoing maintenance. And this comes back to the legacy system that we now have in terms of the advent of big data, where you can have as many locations as possible where a single data is, and they can also be easily accessed by just moving across those databases, not just restricted to a single relational database system, which can just develop forth at any point in time. So, what am I trying to say is the regular equipment maintenance, the hardware repair, the operating system, and the software updates, creation of backup, and network optimization, and what have you. All these things will necessarily be done at some regular interval, but it is very important to have uh, an option in place to cover why these major maintenance are underway. So even if eventually to take, like, say, we'll make an announcement in a week or two time that okay, there will be maintenance that will go on within so time of a particular day. Most of the time they use weekend to run all of those maintenance stuff and all that, but it won't go beyond that 1 or 2 hours as it is, and it will be a period of time where the traffic is low. It won't be during peak period because of the fact that you are especially expected to ensure availability of your data for authorized user at all time when they so need, unless when something entirely critical beyond human reasoning happen and there's nothing you could do but just to force run after securing the data from invaders before you now start figuring out how to make it available for users, I mean authorized users, to run their daily activities. So it is also important to put a plan in place which will help recover quickly from natural or man-made disaster. Yes, this will happen. Natural or man-made disaster will happen that will affect data storage and all that. So it is expected that you have a plan. You have a plan B or a plan A. I'm a plan B or plan C, as it were, against this kind of events, such that when they happen, you know what to trigger immediately. Why you take your time in between to see what could be done to address the attack that has just been suffered by the organization. So the likes of firewalls and all sort of different malware can be used, and the setup in terms of your cybersecurity architecture, who are expected to be on their toes to see likely or potential threats that could degenerate into serious attack in the course of time. So those stuffs need also to be put in place just to reduce to the barest minimum the amount of attack you suffer or the impact of that attack itself in the long run. Yeah, next is, and this will be likely the last parts to cover up these ethics and bias in data, is what we call data subject rights. So I've mentioned in passing earlier that we have something we call personally identified information. That is information that uh, that are easy for somebody to link to a living or even non-living human being. So it means that that information has got a label that has either the person's name or the person's email or the person's information that can be identifiable. And that's why it is summarized in that simple phrase, personally identifiable information. Any information that can be easily linked to somebody. It could be the address, it could be the email address, it could be the physical location address, it could be the name, it could be the phone number, it could be anything in terms of data. So those are what we call PII, and those people who are or who can be easily identified with any of such data, they are who we call data subject because they are the owner of that data. So these people who are called data subject now, they have rights and their rights must be protected. So in protecting their rights, especially under GDPR, which is General Data Protection Regulation, we have this set of rights you as a data person must put at the back of your mind because you can be a fantastic data scientist making cool money and can also land in trouble if care is not taken. So that is why we need to go over this over and over. We cannot overemphasize it because it is as critical uh, as the analysis you are doing, if not even more critical than the analysis you are trying to do. So, what are the rights? One is rights to be informed. The person needs to know how their data is collected and how it's going to be used. That's rights to be informed. That needs to go to them. So anybody dealing with data, especially PII, personally identifiable information, needs to bear this in mind. Right to access. These data subjects, they have rights to access this data you have collected about them. So they need to see what personal data is held about them. Next is right to rectification. They also have right to correct inaccurate or incomplete data. So there could have been some omission in terms of letters in the way their names were written, or some little items in the way their email address were written. They have rights to request you to get these rectified. They also have rights to erasure, and this is also called the right to be forgotten. So that person can tell you to get their data erased or just do as if that data was never collected before and that has to be deleted from the database. So right to restrict processing. So they can also go as far as limiting how their data is used. So you could have up to 5 to 7 ways through which you want to use their data. So as long as that is communicated during the right to inform, if they feel any of them is not going down well with them, they can restrict you from 2 or 3 of them. Or if they feel they cannot do without those 2 or 3 that you want them to limit their processing so they can altogether delete your data if it will not make them achieve their own aim, and they have to get back to you in writing to confirm that data has been completely deleted because they will not be able to achieve what they need to achieve with your data if they can only process it for 5 things instead of 17. So rights to data portability to receive and reuse their data elsewhere. So this is also a right given to them They have that right to receive and reuse their data. As we right to object, they can object to certain uses of their data, just similar to restriction in processing. And the final one is rights related to automated decision making and profiling, protection from certain decisions made only by automated systems. So when some people collect data, of course, they feed it through their systems, and some of the algorithm or some applications they have can also feed on that data and start making some predictions based on that data. For instance, if some people receive some data about a transaction you made in terms of your purchase, so there are some algorithm on their platform that can quickly predict that, okay, for you to have purchased this item about baby, so it means this person may have a baby, or it could be a nursing mother or nursing father, and the system will just begin to auto suggest baby related products or items to you. So there could be, I mean, the data subject have rights to also check into this and request some moderation where uh, necessary. So this is where the entire bias in data and ethics will be coming to an end. So after which we will now take up what we call creating your portfolio. So we have some talk around that and be able to get it sorted. Thank you once again. If there is no question, then that will be fine for us to draw the curtain at this point for on today's session. Till we meet again next session next week, same time. Stay compliant and stay vigilant in terms of the use, management, and administration of data. Thank you and bye for now.